Welcome to the annual conference of the Catholic Social Workers National Association, which was held on July 26 through July 28, 2013, at Marytown Shrine of Maximilian Kolbe in Libertyville, Illinois. Barbara Shumard, LMSW from Michigan, trained in metaphor therapy, will be speaking on working with adult survivors of abuse using negative transference, countertransference, and metaphors.
I have so much to say. I just feel like I will never get it all said, but I am going to. I've got it. Can you hear me or not?
Yeah.
Huh?
I
Okay.
feel like your mic, but we can hear you.
Okay. All right, because I have a very soft voice. Not on purpose, I just do. So.
If they're trying to tape you, that might be hard.
I know. That's what he moved it up here. He said it was better. So. Yesterday when we were talking about ethics and what we do with ethics, I'm a private practitioner, and I worked 17 years in agencies, and somewhat disappointed, but mostly disappointed with Catholic social services because there were no Catholics there, and because when there was an emergency, my supervisor was drunk and he would say, I shouldn't say that. Be careful what I say. Like if somebody was suicidal, he says, if they're going to do it, they're going to do it. And out of that, I went into private practice at the urging of my husband. And so I've been what's the math, from 17, 49? It'll be my 49th year that I graduated. It was in 1964. So I love the private practice. I love Catholic social services because that was the first time that I had permission to be able to be a Catholic. So that was wonderful. But I had worked in a state mental hospital, child psychiatry, mental health clinics, family service. I did adoptions, foster home, family counseling. I did TV work. I did radio work. So I had a wonderful time those first 17 years. But boy, the Lord really stepped in once I went into private practice. It took me maybe 3 months to be filled, and I never have had a business card. So the Lord just kind of follows me around and keeps just sending me these really precious, precious, precious people. But I have a footnote. I was just so jealous of you yesterday, Rose. You have a mother, and you have a mother that loves you. And you're just so free. And like, where were you when I needed you when I was a kid? Because you are our future. And I am just glad, to pass it on to people like you. You are awesome. My story's a little bit different. My father didn't believe in God, and my mother was a paranoid personality. And at times she would be very schizophrenic acting. And by the time I was 5, I was a selective mute. You're familiar with the DSM, selective mute. I could not talk. The kindergarten teacher wanted her to take me to a psychiatrist, so we moved. You know how that goes in abusive families, you pick up and you move. Okay, so I had 5 older brothers. 2 of them had been taken by the court in my mother's first marriage, so they were half-brothers, because she was out running around and doing things she shouldn't have been doing. And then my dear father, I love him forever, never, never. He was the only sane figure in my life, but I didn't have a relationship with him until I was about 19, because she didn't want me to, and she would tell me, he doesn't like you, and it was, that kind of stuff. And he just stayed away from me, and then I found out later, my aunt told me that I used to be locked in my room for days at a time so my father couldn't see me. So it was a real crazy kind of a childhood. And I have a client I've been working with since I've been here. I'm making nightly calls to her. She climbs a tree at night and she takes a big belt, and she ties herself in the tree because she's so scared. Okay, I gotta tell you, I know about that. I know about terror. I know about the worst kind of terror that anybody could have, because I grew up with that. I grew up with when my brother would pull a gun on me, my mother would ask me, what did you do to him? You know, and he'd be about to shoot me, but because she would sort of intervene and say, what did you do, that he didn't shoot me. I had a brother who came home from World War II, post-traumatic stress, and he did pretty terrible things. So my grandmother was a pedophile and molested my brothers, and I think my mother did too. I'll never be able to prove it. And then my brothers molested me, and they physically beat me up. And so my childhood was like not a lot of fun. Okay, so I just, I debated about, do I really share this or not? And I think, yes, because God has been with me every step of the way. I should have been a lot different than what I am. I should be a lot different. But my mother made the mistake of dropping me off at a Baptist church, and for like a little summer thing, I found out somebody loved me. It was like a secret I kept. I found out that Jesus loves little children. I was about 4 years old, and I was a mute by then. But I found out that Jesus loves me, and that has changed my whole life. So I just want to quickly, this is not about me, this is about Jesus. I want to tell you that when I got married, within 2 months, I had 5 months to live. They had found that I had severe kidney disease with kidneys the size of a 3-year-old child. And I had Pseudomonas, which back then there was no medication for. And I had had the Baptist experience, and then some neighbors had taken me to the Episcopalian church. And when I was at the Episcopalian church, they said, oh, those Catholics, this is what we do, but those Catholics do this. Well, immediately I was drawn to Catholicism from the time I was a little girl. It's like, I can't wait to meet those Catholics, And my family hated Catholics. All I ever heard was how bad the Catholics were. But I felt drawn. So then I meet my husband, and on the first date, and I had decided I'll never be married. Forget that. I watched my parents, and it's like, how dumb do I look? So when I met my husband, I'd found out that he had a crush on me years ago when he was 14 and I was 16, and I was serving little Cokes at the pharmacy and all that. And I won't take time to tell the story how we met, but first date night. He says, let's go to the drive-in movie. Cool, I'll just stay over here. I'll be fine. He reaches in the back seat. He brings out the Baltimore Catechism.
Oh. Wow.
I was putty in his hands. So we'll be married 49 years in September. So the only other part of that I want you to understand is with the Pseudomonas, I had been given 5 years to live because there was no medication for that at that time. And so I chose St. Jude, and I joined the church. And I had been doing very poorly, and I was hospitalized several times. They had to totally take out my ureters. They had to reimplant. The kidneys were being more and more damaged. And so I chose St. Jude. And I had a wonderful Jewish doctor, and he came in one day, and I was laying there, and he said, so, how did the Pseudomonas go away? And I said, you should know it's your boy that I'm in love with. And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, it's Jesus. I never expected that, but it went away. And so I had been on the verge of having to use kidney dialysis for 49 years. And I was told I could never have any children. So we moved to the Chicago area, and I met another Jewish doctor. And I said to him, isn't there any chance I could be pregnant? Because the first doctor said that it's never going to happen because I would not be able to sustain the baby long enough for the baby to live, and I wanted at least the baby to live. I would have died for a baby. And he said, well, we could put tubes in your kidneys, and you could be in the hospital the whole time, and we'll try it. Nothing happened for 3 years. Nothing happened. And all of a sudden, I had the flu, which was my first baby. I was 34. And so I was prepared to have to stay in the hospital the whole pregnancy. This baby's going to be scrawny, skinny. He or she may make it, he or she may not make it. But I was pregnant, and I was with the joy. I'm just going to make this real quick. He was 10 pounds, 2.5 ounces, 23 inches long. He looked ridiculous in the incubator. Okay? And then I went on, the next one I lost, and then I went on and I had another baby, and then I was never pregnant again. So the Lord wanted me to have these 2 boys, and they are just the love of my life. They are the love of my life. We had adopted, we'd gotten special permission from Catholic Social Services in Oklahoma where we were living. And they gave permission for us to adopt a little Indian baby because they figured I would be the mother until she was 5, and then she'd have my husband. So I was fine with that. So we adopted her, and she cried all the time. She never didn't cry. And as it turned out, to make a very long story short, is that she was very ill mentally, right from birth, and she is still very ill. She's in and out of bad circumstances. She calls me usually every week. She'll say, "Oh, Mommy, I wish you could rock me." She's very ill, and I just pray for her, and I know God loves her. And she was a Baptist for a while, and then I just gave her the and she said, "Okay, Mom, I'll find a nun to talk to." So anyhow, that's basically it. And then just a real short, because this again is not about me, this is about Jesus. 9 years ago, I lost my immunity system. I don't have an immunity system. I go in every third week, and I have my immunity system put in. And then 3 years ago, which was first, well, it was time to go to work, and I thought, oh, it's so foggy today, I am going to go the highway because I don't want to run into deer. There's a lot of deer in Michigan. And as I turned my car to go to the highway, it went the other way. I'm going, what? Fine, I'll just go down here a little bit and I'll turn around and I'll take the highway. Again, to make it very, very, very short, I crashed. I took down all the mailboxes, and when I finally got to town, I drove from one town to another, about 15 miles, and it was state roads and ravines, and I didn't kill anybody, and I didn't kill myself, and I know that, my St. Jude and my angels, I don't know how I got there, but I trust, I was taken there, and I didn't hurt anybody. I would be a person that, I couldn't stand it if I hurt anybody. So then I was not able to drive for 6 months because what they found out is I had a brain aneurysm, and I didn't know it, but that's not what caused the accident. I had gone into seizures. And so it saved my life that they found I had a brain aneurysm. So my life is one miracle after the other. Well, the next thing you know, I'm allowed to drive. So I drive, and about the second day it was time for a mammogram, and I had cancer. It's like, Lord, I sort of love it. I don't like being sick, but I sure like it when I have time to read scripture. And when the doctor told me that I had cancer, she cried and my husband cried, and I just kind of looked at him, and I thought, well, I'll help you through it. Don't worry about it. Okay, so I helped him through it, and I did have to have the mastectomy. But here's the last part of the miracle. There's so many miracles in my life. I could go on and on. Jesus is so good. I said to my husband, okay, I like to work. And I'm not going to miss work just because I don't have an immune system or whatever. So I said, I got to go to work today, but I'll call my secretary and have her cancel. So she canceled like 2 or 3 clients. And I said, I think I'm kind of feeling this. I think I'll go home and I'll just kind of lay down. So I went home and I laid down. And as I was waking up, I saw myself on the cross being held. Jesus had his arms around me. I'm not that kind of person. That's just not how I think and do. But he had his arms around me. And God was behind him, and I felt the Holy Spirit. And I didn't tell anybody because I thought, I can't, all my secular friends would think I was like, ooh. So I found this cross. Not too long after that. And there's God behind Jesus holding him. And I never knew there was a cross like that. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm done. I'm healed. I'm cured. I love the people that I work with. You cannot imagine the beautiful people that God sends to me every day. I don't advertise. I don't have business cards. I don't have a website. I work from 7 to 7, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I have 20 minutes for my lunch. And Thursdays Fridays, every 2 weeks off, 1 week on, I get my immune system back. And I bicycle 2 to 3 times a week, 25 miles each time. So, I just don't fit. I don't fit. I didn't fit in my family. But I'm going to tell you something that I realized yesterday. I am so grateful to my mother that she was that ill, because had she not been, I would not have known Christ, because she didn't believe. And I lived in terror and anxiety and depression. Went 16 years of therapy with an ex-prioress who had been married twice and was then married to a Jewish person who never gave me 1 degree of comfort. Not 1 degree of comfort. So I've learned how to be a therapist by not being what she was. Okay? So the people that come in my office, they are at very high risk because I adore them. I love them, and I tell them, I love you. And I don't tell them the minute they come in the door, but I sit and I look at them, and I look into their eyes, and I look into their souls. And it's like, wow, God, thank you so much. I'm 73. I'm hoping God will let me go maybe till 80, 85 while I'm still seeing people, but that's up to him. I'd like to go for a long time. So, very quickly, I talk way too much, and I want to share then what they were asking you yesterday, Rose, is what's your formula? All right, here's my formula. Negative transference, countertransference, self-fulfilling prophecy, metaphor work. In the state of Michigan, we are to have 46 CEUs every 3rd year. I do that about a year. I miss nothing. If anything's about trauma, I go to it. So I'm up on brain plasticity, mindfulness. I'm up to date. I'm old, but I'm up to date. And I'm not going to miss anything. So I just keep going and learning and learning and learning and learning. Okay, so let's go to that first page. Oh, I got to tell you this. Personal experience with transference. Do you have that page? Yeah.
When you said I take the CEUs, is that a requirement?
Yeah.
Yes.
What
Yes.
does that mean? So it means like you have to.
Continue education.
Continuing education.
For your life in our
Yeah.
states.
And most of the workshops I go to, you get 5-6 hours.
So you could do 4. So what's
I
the
do about
requirement
46 a
every
year. I do about 46 a year.
Is that the requirement, 46
No.
a year?
That's
Okay.
30
No.
every 2 years.
Yeah.
In my state, it's 40 every 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Here, we're getting 13 for the ones that we're doing here.
Yeah.
In this conference.
And some ethics, because we're.
yeah, and ethics are required, and yeah.
Yeah.
So what I bring to you is not only, I bring to you what God has given to me, but I also bring to you the most updated information and how I integrate it into what I do. All right.
He's interested in confession. He's still hearing confession as long as someone's
Oh, good. Okay. Gee, I wish I could go. Anyhow.
We can't do what
Okay.
they're doing.
Yeah. Okay. I want to give you the first experience I had with negative transference. If on that page, the number's out of date. I'm ADD, so don't worry about it. So the first page is number 3. We'll go over that real quick. Do you have that? Do you have? Yeah. Oh no. Okay. Oh, always. All right. All right. All right. See. All right. So the first one is always encourage your client's anger. Okay. First thing I do, after the client comes in, they give me their name and we go through kind of what the thing is. And my clients are basically dissociative. All of them are post-traumatic stress. I don't care what way they come in. They come in to complain about their husband, whatever it is. I'll give you a good example. Somebody comes in, they feel like they're having a mental breakdown because their 5-year-old girl started kindergarten, and every day since she started kindergarten, I've been checking her genitals. I think I'm having a mental breakdown. So they're not coming in because they've been sexually abused. Of course not. God just sends them to me. So obviously in that sort of a situation, you see very quickly their presenting problem is usually never what they think it is. But so what I learned that I knew not to trust anybody, and I used to feel really bad about that. The problems with post-traumatic stress and dissociation is that you hate yourself. You're in hate with yourself. I remember the first time my therapist said, "What would it take to love you?" I felt like throwing up. I will never love myself. This can never happen. So when you're working with people who've been so traumatized, you have to remember that they have searing physiology that they bring into the office, and it is self-loathing and hatred. One of the gifts of not trusting anyone is I know that when somebody comes in, they're not going to trust me. So the first thing I say to them is, whatever you do, don't trust me. And they always go, "Oh, you're just so nice. I'm going to trust you." I said, "You don't know if I'm Jack the Ripper. Knock it off. Don't do that." So that's the first thing that I tell a client when they come in. Do not trust me, because you don't know who I am, and I want you to learn who I am. So that's the first part of the formula. And then I explained them very quickly, and I've got a lot of this written. You can read it later. And I'm just going to talk as fast as I can. Tell them, if you can allow yourself to have some fantasies about me, about, well, who am I really? Am I married? Do I have children? What do I do at night? What kind of person do you really think I am? And then if you tell me what you think that is, I can't tell you, you will make my day. But you know what? To really make my day, come in next week and tell me how irritated you were with me. And I will be so happy. My clients think I am crazy. But they will come in and say, and I go, "Thank you. That's marvelous." Why is that marvelous? A dissociated post-traumatic stress person could say, "I'm angry." We don't say we're angry. We go, we're like little puppets. I was a model child in school. Everybody used to say, "Oh, you must have the most wonderful mother. You're just the sweetest little girl." Yes, I was. Didn't talk, but sweet. So I want them to not trust me, and I want them to experience anger with me. And when they tell me how angry they are, I give them a big hug. Thank you. And I'm thanking God the whole time, because I know now we can work together. And now they can heal the negative transference that they have at their spouse, at their children, at their friends, at their neighbors, at church, wherever that negative transference is. I got them, because God helps me to get them. Okay? Any questions about that? Because that's a hard concept. I went to a Masters and Johnson's seminar, 30, 40 years ago, and they were talking about negative transference, and somebody in the crowd said, well, when people have negative transference with me, I just tell them they can't act that way. And I thought, okay. But I was so shy, I didn't say anything. That was like 40 years ago. And then I ended up with a large clinic, all private practice, and there were 16 of us. And one of the clients there, she was a therapist with another agency. And I was talking to her about negative transference and encouraging her to have it with me. And she said, are you going to charge me more for negative transference? I said, no, where did you get that idea? She said, well, I charge my clients. I tell them if they have negative transference, I charge them an extra 20. I said, well, I charge 100, you know. Yeah. So there's crazy ideas about negative transference. Negative transference is a gift from God. Bless the symptoms of negative transference. You are so lucky when your client tells you how they really feel about you. Okay, so a couple of quick examples. When I was doing foster parents in Oklahoma at Tulsa Family and Service, this lady with a big fur coat came in, and she had red hair and, you know, makeup, earrings, and she was like, she can't sit down. I want to be a foster parent. And I felt my blood boiling, and I felt like I was going to throw up. I didn't understand negative transference back then. And I don't know, I saw her maybe 2, 3, 4 times, and I kept telling the supervisor, I don't like her, I don't trust her. And then she said, what's your mother like? And I said, well, she has red hair. I went, oh no. I was having negative transference. I did not trust her with children. It was totally unfair to her, totally. And had I not had good supervision, can you imagine the damage I would have done to her? She was the best foster parent. She was the best. So that was my first example. But I was like, and she was wonderful. She was just like putting up with me and putting up with me. And then she came on one day and I just said, you know what? In mental health, there's this thing about negative transference. I've been in negative transference with you, and I apologize. I was like giving you a rough time, and I didn't know why, but my supervisor, you know, I could talk by the time I had my master's. So, so she was wonderful. So that's just one little example. This is awful. This is probably 35 years ago. I was in the car wash, and I had pulled in to vacuum my car. And you know, when you pull in like that, other people are like coming in, and they're going to go directly to the car wash. So I started to pull out of there, and this woman came directly at me with like, it was like, you know, like a dragon. And she started screaming at me, and she put her bumper right up to my bumper. And she said, I was first. I said, okay. I mean, that's the way you need it to be. And she just kept screaming and screaming and screaming. And then I started to feel something. Now, when you live your whole life dissociated, you do not feel anger. I don't remember feeling anger. First time, I got angry. The more she talked, the more angry I got. And it was flashing. Social worker put in jail for killing the woman in the car wash. I wanted to kill her. And I felt so ashamed, and I had no idea, like, what's happened to me? What's wrong with me? You know, it's like I really prayed about, like, maybe I should just get out of the business. I mean, I must be a walking time bomb. Well, by the next day, after calming down and thinking about it, it came back to me that when I was 12, again, I had 5 brothers. The brother next to me was 18 months older. One 7 years older, one 14 years older, one 21 years older, and one 22 years older. Well, the one that was next to me, we were like little twins when we were little, and we were so close. But he was severely abused by my mother, my grandmother, and my other brothers. And he kind of turned on me. And by the time I was 12 years old, he had threatened to shoot me. He would tie me up. He would kick me. He would punch me. And he was always bigger than I was. One day, I was 12 and I had my height. We were sitting in the kitchen and he started in on me, and I had never said one peep to him all those years. I couldn't to my other brothers, they were so much older. And I reached over and I grabbed his hair, and he had beautiful, thick red hair like my mother. And when my hand came out, it was full of his hair. I was mortified, and then I remembered. That's what that was. That's why I wanted to kill the woman. She was badgering, bullying, swearing, calling names. Well, I'm not proud to say this, but I took him outdoors because he was laughing because I'd never been angry before. Took him outdoors. I tied him up with our garden hose and I beat the crap out of him. I did, and I felt really bad. But that's what that was. And as a therapist, if you have any kind of abuse, it's going to smack you right in the face. It's going to come out. So, the sad story about him, well, there's the whole family is a sad story, but he was working on his PhD when I was working on my MSW, and he was at University of Texas in Denton, and he had been so beaten and so abused, tortured with fire. My brothers would force my clothes on him. It was just, I don't even want to get into it. But he was just somebody looking for a place to die. Because what I did, and I'm telling you this because you need to understand dissociation and PTSD. What I did is I was like, because I learned by watching him beaten and tortured to cooperate. Okay, he never did learn that. He always fought back. So he was on his way to drop off his doctoral, his dissertation. He was on a motorcycle and he ran into the side of a car and became brain damaged. He broke everything on the right. His lungs collapsed. It was just like, it was like a metaphor of his life. And he's actually still alive, but he's never been able to talk much. He acts like he has a stroke. So his whole life, because of what my family did, his whole life he has suffered because of that. So, sounds crazy. The good news is he's a much better person. And I don't mean that to be funny. I mean, he was really heading, the bad way. He is precious. The Mormons picked him up, and he's become a Mormon elder, and I'm not happy about that, but he's not happy about me being Catholic. But he's wonderful. He's got 3 wonderful children. He's never been able to work much. I love these nieces and nephews, and they each have like 5 or 6 kids. His family has just grown and grown and grown. Had he not had that accident, I don't know what had happened to him. He might have ended up in prison. So it's very sad. This is really serious business. You never know when somebody walks through that door what's happened to them, because with PTSD and dissociation, they don't remember. And there's 1 or 2 ways of not remembering. One is they know everything that's happened to them, but they never thought about it. Never crossed their mind. It's like in their lockers at school. Okay? The other is, which was me, is terror, anxiety, hardly being able to breathe without just waiting for some kind of attack. And those people come in and they're terrorized, but they don't have any memories. So when I went in, I didn't have any memories. I just thought, whatever. So that's the 2 kind of clients that you're going to get. All right. Oh, then this last one real quick. I don't want to go on about this. But I went to a huge Catholic church in the Detroit suburbs. And somehow somebody from that church saw me and my children, and they were referred to me. And one day I went to pick up my kids from their catechism, and she was trying to put him in the car. And I could hardly breathe because I just had a session with her. And I talked to her about, well, I'm talking to you now about the negative transference. And I had said to her, what is your fantasy about me? And she said, you molest your children. And she was picking up my kids. I almost fainted dead away. Listen to what their fantasy is about you. They will tell you, they're telling you what happened to them. Okay? So this is the value of negative transference. They may not have the memories, but they will have it in their fantasies and in their negative transference. Now, countertransference. Countertransference, we were taught in school that countertransference is, this person starts having this reaction, and so we start to have a reaction to their reaction. So it's just really about us. Okay? So like, well, I could remember one countertransference that I had. The woman was really being mean to her husband. Well, my mother tortured my father. He had 3 strokes, and he was just at her mercy from the time he was 50 years old. And she not only tortured us, but she tortured him too. And I can just remember wanting to hurt her. So yeah, that's very important. What I want to teach you, you're not going to hear, I don't think, anyplace else, is that countertransference is their way of telling you what it was like for them. Now, this is really important. And I discovered this years ago, and I was like, oh, thank you, God. Countertransference, when you start to feel strange feelings towards that client and you're not quite sure why, because it doesn't seem like it's about you. If it doesn't feel like it's about you, it is not about you. It is about them. I have an example. Let's turn the page here. All right. I turn the page to some of the examples I have. Page 1, which is like 3 pages in. ADD, remember? Okay. I was doing a training group of therapists, teaching them how to do working with abuse and metaphor therapy. And there was a gal in the group. Let's see here. Okay. She was being very coy and flirtatious with myself and some of my workers. We were having this training program. And she kept saying, oh, my mother's just so mean to me. And, and I can't stand her. And she always rejects me. She's always mad at me. But she was like being almost sexual about it. It was like bizarre. And, your body starts to feel like, what is this? And so she turned to one of my workers, and she said to her, she looked her right in the face, she said, if I come over, would you hug me? And my worker said, no! Oh. Now, why do you suppose that happened? Yeah. Aren't you supposed to say, sure, I'll come over, I'll give you a hug? The countertransference is, that's how she felt when her mother was molesting her. So that worker got it. She got it. She didn't know she got it. I know she got it because I understand countertransference. And so I was able to translate that into, you just did something with someone that I know in my heart your mom did to you. She goes, how did you know that? So don't assume that countertransference is about you. If it's about you, you'll know it right away. If it's not, if it feels foreign and it doesn't make any sense, it's about them. She was demonstrating unconsciously how her mother seduced her. And then I was able to extend to her, and then she just knocked off that kind of sexy kind of thing that was just so inappropriate. And it was a great relief for her. And my poor sidekick, I just about had to revive her. So anyhow, so you all know what transference is. You've all been to graduate school, and you all know what countertransference is. If you have any questions about that, go ahead and ask me, because it is a lot more complicated than what it looks. And just again, just when these things happen, you just talk to God. My sessions, I just talk to God. Well, help me with that. I don't understand that. And then you bless it. Thank you, God, because you have given me a way to reach to this person that nobody has ever been able to reach before. Most of the clients that come to me have been in therapy 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and they feel like they get no help. And so when I get them, they'll try one more time. My own therapy was 16 years, 2 to 3 times a week. She never got it. But I'm not stupid. I got it after 16 years, okay? And I knew what I was going to do differently. So I thank her, too, that through that experience, it's really helped me to be present to people in a very different way. Okay, so asking, what is your fantasy about me, is really important, because then you will get the story. All right? And then when you ask them, at some point, you'll always ask them, do you like yourself? And invariably you'll get, yeah, what do you mean, yeah? Well, not really, okay? Ask them about that, and what's the fantasy? What would have to happen that you could like yourself? This is important because when you're working with a dissociation, the person is in hate with themselves, like some narcissists are in love with themselves. Dissociated PTS people are in hate with themselves, and you can be playful with it. Jesus laughs. I've learned to laugh. I never laughed till I met my husband and he pulled out the Baltimore Catechism. But we play like, for example, right now I'm working with somebody who has dissociative fugues with amnesia. And I'm trying to kind of educate. You have to educate. If they can at least get an explanation. Most of them have never had an explanation, never worked with anybody who knew about dissociation. They kind of get traditional treatment, and they have no sense of themselves. So what I explain to them is that even though you don't remember, I know there's several children inside of you. And those children, they know they're the core of you. They know. And guess what? You're being mean to them. You don't want to have anything to do with them. And invariably clients will say, you're right, I don't want, that 5-year-old part of myself, I don't want anything to do with that. I think about being 5 and I feel like I could throw up. I see them, picture myself, and I feel like it's just so disgusting. So I explain dissociation in this way. Okay, there's a fragment of time when you couldn't stand it anymore, and part of you shut down, and then the 5-year-old in 1 minute stepped over here, and she went ahead and she became 5, 5.5, 6, 10, 11, 20, 40. But the 5-year-old is still back there in the memory. How do I know that's true? It's because of the metaphor therapy that I was just so lucky to learn from a gentleman from New Zealand, that what we know about abuse is right now, if somebody would come into this room and they had a machine gun, how many of you would go? How many would you get up and run towards him? How many would you run out the other door? Anybody run out the other door? You think you would? Good luck. What happens, there is a T represents the trauma. The trauma is, he's got a machine gun, he's going to kill me, okay? But that hasn't happened yet. He opens that door, he's got a machine gun. That's what we call a T minus 1. Moments before the worst thing in the world can happen. All right? And then you have the T, you're dead, although not much of a trauma. At least you get to be with the Lord. Or you're maimed, okay? And then you have the T minus 1, the memory's over, you're in the hospital, and you survive. How do I know that people are frozen in time? Because in T minus 1, it's the, and you stop breathing. Because if you stop breathing, maybe it won't happen. But when you're little, it happens anyhow. And from the moment you have the T minus 1, you hold your breath. We learned from the Vietnam veterans that when you ask them what happened, they'd say, my buddy was running. And you say, well, then what happened? Well, my buddy was running, and my buddy was running. Like, why can't they complete it? Because they keep that buddy alive. It's like an ing. It was about to happen. It had not happened. It was about to happen. Same thing happened to me. I was in a car, behind a car that had a head-on, and I saw the mother fly out of the van, and I saw the baby fly out of the van. And when the police came, I was the only eyewitness. I kept saying, and I knew better. I knew better. I knew this theory, but I kept saying, well, I saw the mother fly out of the van, and I saw the baby fly out of the van. I could not tell them what happened. I had no idea it was a head-on. But why did I have her in the air and the baby in the air? Because it kept him alive. That T minus 1 is what your dissociative clients walk in with. They walk into your office and they are in a T minus 1 state. And in a T minus 1 state, the breath is different. You're like holding your breath. And people, if you'll notice, when they come in, they're traumatized. They don't have a deep breath. Now, what's the value of that? Well, first of all, that gives me a place to go in geographically and rescue that kid. Second of all, and I'll bring in like today's learning with the neuroscience, is when you're breathing shallow, what happens is your breath and oxygen doesn't reach your vagus nerve, and then your vagus nerve does not, trip off the hormones and the serotonin that you need to feel good, and you're in this sort of state of no brain plasticity. You have to have brain plasticity to be healed. Why? Because when you don't have it and you're in terror and you're not breathing normally, you're still in that memory. You're still 5 years old. That part of you is still 5 years old. So one of the things you can do with your client is to teach them to breathe. Now, you women are going to hate this, men don't mind. The way you teach a client to breathe is to make sure that when they go home, they lay down and you have them breathe and make their stomach hump way up. Go. None of us want to do that. I sure don't want to do that. But when you do that, this is what happens. When you're frozen in time and you're traumatized, you look at the left brain is like a basement with the lights off. Nobody's home. The right brain is like psychedelic city, okay? And that's why there's so much anxiety. You teach them to breathe, and once they start to breathe and the vagus nerve is activated, the light comes on from the basement, and the person can be in the here and now. Most of the clients that come in, they are not in the here and now. They don't know it, but they are not in the here and now. They're in the terror of where they were frozen in the middle of time. So there's the principle of the T minus 1, the T, and the T plus 1. I want to say one other thing before we go on with the metaphor therapy. And I have some exercises I want to do with you. Is anybody watching the time? Because I talk way too much.
Until 3. I think we have till 3:30.
Oh, we do? Okay, great. And what time is it now?
10 till 3. We have 40 minutes.
Oh, that's all I have. All right. Let's see how to do this the quickest. All right, first of all, besides the negative transference, the countertransference, the let them be angry with you, and then check whether or not they like themselves. You need to understand their self-fulfilling prophecy. What is it that's going to happen to somebody who was never liked as a kid? I'll tell you what happened to me. Nobody liked me. That's what I thought. I didn't know that people liked me, but I did not know that anybody liked me. I couldn't imagine anybody liking me. My clients are all the same way. They'll come in with, and I'll ask them, you know, like, well, what's your greatest fear that's going to happen in our relationship? Well, you're not going to like me. You're going to abandon me. You'll work with me a while, but you'll change your mind. You won't like me anymore. They will tell you what their self-fulfilling prophecy is. If you ask them, what's the worst thing that can happen in our relationship with one another? Okay? You have to know what that is. Now, these are just the secular kinds of things in mental health. These are basic requirements that you have to do with clients who are traumatized. Okay. Now, in the next 40 minutes, I'm going to share some wonderful, wonderful things with you that I was privileged not only to learn, but I traveled around the country for several years training therapists, like 500 at a time. Went from state to state to state, while consulting, while running my agency, while raising 2 kids, while trying to find my husband. I'm a workaholic, in case you hadn't figured it out. Okay. Here's the thing about metaphors. When the guy comes in the room with a machine gun and you shut down, how do you think you do that? Anybody got any idea? Any of you know how you shut down? I mean, do you just say to yourself, I'm going to shut down? No. But if you're traumatized, you're going to shut down. And there's nobody sitting here who has never been traumatized. I don't care if it was in kindergarten, some little ratty kid, you know, told you your head was too big. We all get traumatized. You need to understand that about yourself so you can help your clients understand it about themselves. How do you get traumatized? Okay, you stop breathing, and then your eyes kind of look. And you may go up into the ceiling, and you may become part of that kind of ragged part of the ceiling. You might go into that picture. You might go behind your eyes. You might go in your throat. You might go in your lungs. You might go in your heart, and you might go in your stomach. We are just so blessed. God has given us so many ways to protect ourselves. We have these awesome ways to protect ourselves. And your clients, they don't know how they do that. And so you have to say to them, well, do you have any idea? And they're looking at you, and pretty soon their eyes are like over here, and you kind of watch where they're going. And then you can kind of see. Or they'll be looking down. And so what happens when you're traumatized is there is a humongous physiology that happens. It's like searing, screeching pain. It's like your hands on a blackboard, or it's like electrical shocks in your stomach, or maybe your arms feel numb. Maybe you feel like there's a huge lump in your throat. Maybe you feel like there's a big pressure in your chest. Okay, those things come out as metaphors. So I want to spend these last few minutes talking about metaphors. Metaphors have the seeds of healing that God gives us. When your client comes in, they're going to say, I don't want to feel such and such anymore. And so I go, I'm all excited. You don't want to feel that? Great, that's where I need to work then, because I know that's where God has given you your blessing. So I don't want to feel like I have a volcano in my chest all the time. Oh, a volcano in your chest. Well, it's a metaphor. And so it's straight from God. This is how God protects us. Something bad happens, and then we have like a volcano in our chest. So what does the client want to do? I don't want to feel the volcano anymore. What do you want to do? You want to make love with that volcano. You want to get to know it. You want to bless it. You want to say to them, oh, you're so lucky. Do you know the power of a volcano. Or if it's butterflies, I've got butterflies in my stomach. Oh, well, how many? How many butterflies is that? And what colors do you have? And then you want to start asking them, what would those butterflies like to do? And what would those butterflies like to have happen? Why? Because that's where they're frozen in time, that's where their symptoms are, and that's how God heals it. God does not put butterflies and volcanoes in our bodies. When we have those kinds of metaphors, it's because they came in from the environment. The abuse goes into us. It either goes into us literally inside, or sometimes it goes in our arms. Sometimes, you ever felt like your feet were stuck in cement and you couldn't move? Which is a very common thing in abuse. It's like, I can't move. Okay, so when people will say, well, I can't move, it's like, whoa, that's good information. Let's go to the feet. This is where it is. And we're kind of like surgeons. I mean, it's such a wonderful method of accessing where the person is stuck. So let's just use the volcano. Okay, so you've got this volcano. All right, well, okay, well, let's just relax. Now we know that we're on the right way, and you know, they're looking at you like you're totally crazy. Somehow my clients put up with me, I'm not quite sure how. So, well, then what kind of a volcano? Could it be a little volcano, or could it be a big volcano? And what could that volcano be made of? And could it be rough, or could it be smooth? Could it have a color? Could it have a temperature? And you ask them everything you can think to ask. You treat it because that volcano's them. That's part of their trauma. And then you ask, what does that volcano want to have happen? And what does that volcano want to do? And it is just sit back and watch God work. It just blows my mind, because it makes no sense to me to talk like that to a person in the primary process, right? I mean, we're talking to the unconscious. But you're talking to where that person is abused and stuck. Being abused is you're stuck. You can't move. And I love what you do, because you just send the Holy Spirit and they have movement, okay? And in the same way, the Holy Spirit will help them with their stuck. So what would that volcano like to do? Well, it wants to explode, but I'm not going to let it. Okay, now we have, this is somebody who doesn't like themselves because it's their volcano and they don't want to have anything to do with it. Well, what happens when you're abused is you don't want anything to do with yourself. You see yourself in the eyes of the perpetrator. All right, so that volcano is theirs. So you can tell them, it's okay to bless this volcano. It has information for you. And could you like that volcano? No, I can't like that volcano. Then I'll ask the volcano. I said, I want you to stay out of it. I want to talk to the volcano. Okay, could volcano like you? And you'll usually get a, yeah. And when volcano can like you, could you like volcano? Well, maybe. And when it's, well, maybe, could that volcano love you? That volcano go, yeah. And when that volcano can love you, could you love that volcano? And it's usually yes. Once in a while it'll be a no, and that's all right, but it usually goes in a yes. So as you love that volcano, and that volcano loves you, and you like that volcano, and that volcano likes you, that's very different from being alone. You see, when you're abused, you're alone. Now they have an alliance. They have that part of themselves that's frozen and pushed away. Now they have a part that likes them. Okay? Now, why do you suppose we shut down when we are threatened? It's not because we don't love ourselves. It's because we do love ourselves. And that's why every symptom that your client has, I just say, honey, you are just so blessed. You know, you can't swallow and you got a lump in your throat. Wow, God has given you that lump in your throat, or God has given you that volcano, or God has made your feet stuck. There's something that God wants you to know about that. Well, here's the thing. The metaphors are the seeds of the healing. And in the primary process, it can be healed. Because I can say to somebody, oh, I'm so sorry that you were treated so terribly as a child. What does that do? Well, whatever. It doesn't go anyplace. They look at you like, sure, you're just here to get money. They have all their negative transference that are lined up. But when they allow me to work with that metaphor, okay, so what would that volcano like to do? They'll usually answer for it. So they'll say, well, it just wants to go away. And I can tell when they're answering for it, so I say to them, I don't want to talk to you. Let me talk to the volcano. And they kind of look at me. So then I talk to them, okay, and what would volcano like to do? When you're interfering, what would volcano like to do? And it will begin to reveal. It will start to move. It might get warmer. It starts to move up. And where would it like to go, or what would it like to do? It would like to go to a desert. And could it go to a desert? And what kind of a desert could that be? And what would be the first thing that could happen that a volcano could go to a desert? It will remove itself from the body. It's amazing. It will remove itself from the body. And then, oh my gosh, this just blows me away. I have in the second handout, more times than not, other metaphors will appear, and what usually appears, you'll get something like, and then the sun comes out. And I'm thinking, S-O-N, S-O-N, but they're thinking S-U-N. And so as the sun comes out, what happens next? Well, it becomes to be light. And as it becomes to light, what happens after it becomes light? Well, the light comes towards me. And as the light comes towards you, what happens next? It is so beautiful. I get this with Catholics. I don't get it with the secular, although once in a while I do. Once in a while I'll get this with the secular. There's always a healing metaphor that comes in. So what I did is I want to have you guys experience this so that you'll be able to use it with your clients. Even though it may not be their metaphor, this is such a common metaphor that comes up. I'd like you to experience. So what usually happens, though, is that the sun is the light of Christ. Of course, we know that as Catholics. We know that. And what would the sun like to do? Well, it wants to bathe me. And whereabouts would it like to bathe you? Well, it would like to go around my head. And as it goes around your head, what would it like to do next? You just keep talking to it as if it's a person, like a little kid. Okay, now we had this sucker. What would you like to go do next? Well, let's go and let's swing. Okay, now we've swung. What should we do? Well, I want to go wading in the pond. So you talk to that metaphor as if it's a person, because it is part of that person. And it sounds insane, but it's healing. It is absolutely healing. Okay, so you have a choice on this. If there's something that you're aware of, I do not need to be aware of it. Nobody else in the room needs to be aware of it. But if you have something in your life that you just wish would be different, you just wish that somehow it would move, that you know that you're stuck in, then I want you to think about it while you're doing this. And you want to petition the light of Christ to that, whatever that is. I'm not telling you have to do that. I'm just saying if you want to try it that way, that it's fine with me. Now, if I took each of you and did a metaphor with you, it would all be different. Okay? And then what would come from each of your different metaphors would be a different healing metaphor. Sometimes the metaphor is blue. People say, I get a sense of blue. Like the volcano goes to the desert, what happens next? Well, it's kind of like it's all blue. It's all blue like what? Well, it's like a soft light. And what does blue soft light want to do? It wants to come to me. And could a blue soft light come to you? Again, treat it like a person. And oftentimes, this is the Blessed Mother. That even happens with Protestants. I didn't think they knew about the Mother. But, you just get these fabulous, fabulous healing metaphors, and you know it's not you. You know who it is. It is so exciting. Okay, so I'd like to do this with you now. Just take a moment and put both feet on the floor. I'm not going to tell you to relax. I'm not going to tell you to close your eyes. But you are certainly welcome to close your eyes if you want. And you don't have to have anything to heal, because you all know about the light of Christ. All right, so I'm going to talk in the voice that I use, which is hypnotic. It's soft and it's hypnotic when I'm working with a client. Okay. Okay, so then take some time then to know about the light of Christ. And about just exactly whereabouts that could be. And could that be on the outside? And if it's on the outside, would it be right in front of you? Or maybe it could be to the left. Or maybe it could be above you. Or maybe it could even be to the side or the back of you. So take whatever time you need to know about the light of Christ. And it might be interesting to know whether or not it could be inside, and about exactly where inside that might be. And could that be behind your eyes? Or maybe even in your head? Or maybe even in your throat? And who knows, maybe even in your chest, or in your stomach. So take all the time you need to know about the light of Christ. And it'll be very interesting to know what that light might want you to know that you have never known before. And as you know about that light of Christ, what happens first? And about where it wants to go. Whether or not it would be interested in going to your heart. Or maybe it'd even be interested in going around your neck or your head. Or maybe it wants to direct you in a direction, to point something out that's outside of you that you've never seen before. Or it might be interested in going from the top of your head, all around your body, and let the light do what it wants to do. And as it does that, what happens next? As it does that, and whether or not it's interested in a movement, or whether it's interested in letting you know about a different color about that light, and whether or not that light is gold, or whether it's white, or maybe it's blue, or maybe it's shimmering, and about what it would like to do and what it would like to have happen. And as you may or may not know about a memory, or something that's happening to you in your life, whether or not it's interested in going to that memory. Or it might even be interested in going to that person. So just take all the time you need about that. And as you take all the time you need about that, when you're ready, you could come back in the room. And if you're not ready, continue to take whatever time you need about that. And it's very different when you have the light of Christ. If you do this in group therapy, you can talk to the ones who come out and let the other ones stay in. Because when you're in this like mystical experience with God, with the Holy Spirit, it will go on. And the beauty of this is this particular exercise that we just did will probably go on for 6 weeks for you. 6 weeks is about the average. You will think of this light. You will bring the light in a way that you hadn't brought it in before. It's just amazing. Is there anybody who's wanting to share what might have happened? Don't have to.
I couldn't get past the pain in my neck.
That's okay.
I tried.
Did you petition the light to your neck?
It just kept coming. I got stuck on the
Yes,
pain in my neck.
that's right. Pain.
And actually, that's why I was turning my head back and forth
Right.
because it was actually hurting my neck.
Yes, yes. You looked as if the light was maybe surrounding you or something. I wasn't sure, or was trying to come.
To bring in the light,
Uh-huh.
but I couldn't quite. Maybe I'll try again.
Yeah, try again later. And it might be interesting to know there might be a pain in your neck.
It did.
Metaphorically. Metaphorically.
I know.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking about
Yeah.
it metaphorically.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to relax initially when you said just go. So naturally you kind of relax.
Right. Right.
Like this, but the only image that was coming to my mind is that was the picture of Christ at the cross
Yes,
with his
yes.
head.
Yes. Yes.
And
So you were feeling very connected with Christ
Right.
in his pain.
And then I don't know. Then my hands went down like this.
Yeah.
And it's just that. And then that's as far as I got.
That's great. That's fine. That's fine. Anybody else?
So can I follow with that a little bit?
Sure.
So would you then say, tell me about, you say you can't get by the pain in your neck.
Right.
Can you describe the pain in your neck?
Yeah, I could do it in a secular way, just exploring that, or if we had a good relationship and we'd been working for a while, what I would do is take some time to know about the pain in the neck and about just exactly where that could be, and is that inside or outside, and what's it like.
And then I think I would want to know, I've never thought about how, because I always think about Christ suffering on the cross. It's never crossed my mind before the second. to think about his neck.
Yes.
I always think about
Yes, yeah.
his hands, his feet, his
Mhm.
side, the crown on his, but
Mhm.
actually it looks, see, he's
Yes,
the neck.
there you go.
That's, and I
Yes.
never.
But as a
thought
therapist,
about
you would
his
want to
neck.
explore what that means to her. The pain
Yeah.
in the neck is probably symbolic
Yes.
of
Right.
somewhere.
Yeah, but one thing I know is she's more connected with Christ in a way she's never
Yes,
been connected
yes,
before.
yes, yes.
And so I
she
know.
might for 6 weeks
Yes.
kind of
She's-
experience
you-
that and
yeah,
what that means.
Right, right. And then if you would continue to have pain in your neck, then I would go in like, and whereabouts is it? And does it have a size or a shape? Does it have a color? Does it have a temperature?
Does it have a name?
Because yeah, or can you name it? Because you want to make a metaphor.
It wasn't scary.
No, it's
When
not
I
scary.
saw that,
It's
it
a
was-
gift.
It was comforting.
Yes.
But when you look at that,
Mhm.
I would never see Christ that way with his neck
Yeah.
and think of that image being comforting, but when it came
Yes.
to me, it was comforting.
So joining her suffering with Christ.
Yes. Yeah. So what did I do? Not a darn thing.
No,
What did the Holy Spirit do?
amazing. Yeah.
So my homework will be to go and
It's called attention to more of a connected response to Christ. People with physical problems, I go into where that is too. You know, chronic headaches, stomach aches, symptoms that people have had, for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Somebody's having problems with colitis. What's it like? The question is always, don't ask somebody, how do you feel about something? Ask them, what's it like? That's the real question. What's it like, and where is the physicality of what it's like? And then you treat that metaphor, as soon as you make it into a metaphor. Well, it's kind of like a burning stick in my side. And when it's like a burning stick in your side, whereabouts? And could that be outside or inside? And just exactly where? Like a surgeon, you want the exact location. Geez, what do we know about a burning stick? It's causing some pain, maybe telling you something that you weren't aware of before. Oftentimes what happens is you get these metaphors is the clients will go into memory. And all of a sudden they say, I'm 5 years old. And when you're 5 years old, don't talk to them like a therapist. And when you're 5 years old, talk to them like the metaphor. What could be happening? And what's it like? And is there anybody else there? And what happens first? And you help them when they're stuck in a memory. They didn't know they had a memory at 5. I mean, it's just such a God method. It just saves me all the time because I don't have the answers. So that's why I love the metaphor work. So, do we have time for one more?
For more information about this annual conference, please contact Catholic Social Workers National Association at www.cswna.org.